Big Daddy Cool Diesel. You're listening to Wrestling News Live on the SNS Radio Network.
All right, guys, we're back. Wrestling News Live right here on the SNS Radio Network. Mr. Money on the Mic, JJ Allcap Sexay, and I'm joined, of course, by the founder of Wrestling News Live, the outlaw of the IWC, the Trey Dog. And guys, man, we have a huge surprise for you. Big interview tonight on the show, and Trey and I are pumped.
This is a big one for me because this has been a huge year for us as far as interviews. And you know that we've been around for 15 years doing this wrestling radio thing, and I'm still scratching names off my bucket list, and this is the top name on my bucket list right here. Partner, go ahead.
So that being said, I'll let the music speak for itself, ladies and gentlemen.
I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. I've got the looks that drives a girl.
Joining us right now on Wrestling News Live, he is a WWE Hall of Famer. He is the first ever Grand Slam champion in WWE history. And he is the icon, the showstopper, the main event. Give it up for the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. How's it going tonight, Shawn?
It's going very well. I have to say, that may have been, I've gotten a lot of introductions before, but that may have been the best ever. I mean, started out with Nash's music, and then intro with Nash, and then, gosh, I mean, I'm on, I'm the top on somebody's bucket list, and then also, in my litany of 10,000 names. I mean, that is quite the introduction. I truly do greatly appreciate that. That's actually very nice.
Well, you are worth every bit of it, sir. And like I said, I've been at this game for 15 years doing wrestling radio, and I have had what I call my bucket list of guys that I want to get to, and now I think I'm down to 2 names, really 3 names, that I have yet to interview, and one being Sting, one being Triple H, and the other being Stone Cold. And those are the last 3 names on my bucket list. And Kevin Nash was one, and you heard the music in the intro. We had him on for almost, 2 hours?
Oh, God.
Not too long ago?
Yeah, we had him on about 2 months ago. It's funny. We had both Kev and we had Scott, but Scott was pre-recorded. We had Kevin on live, and we literally, it was late at night. I think he was really relaxed, and we had him on for, I swear, it was almost 2.5 hours.
That's just funny. I think it was really relaxed. And
it was a couple bottles of wine. It was a good time. And it was right before you were going into the Hall of Fame, and we had talked to Scott, and he sounded great. I mean, he sounded so Scott-like, and he even said, I've been sober for a while, and it was right before, I guess, the Hall of Fame introduction, and he was so upset that he couldn't go. I mean, you could just hear it in his voice that he wanted to be there for you so badly. And to know that Kevin and Pac were going to be there made it even worse. But he said, I just can't be around my boys in that situation and not screw up and not end up going too far. And I quit drinking 2 years ago, so I know it's hard to do, but I mean...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, you have to admire... I mean, again, say what you want, about Scott. I mean, you got to start somewhere. And to me, I remember Kevin telling me that, and me thinking, you know what? I mean, that's got to be a good start. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just the fact that he's aware of it. You know what I mean? I think that's good. I mean, we all want so much for him. You know what I mean? But it's I know everybody's sympathetic and everybody cares about Scott, and we all do, and I was actually very happy, to hear that, he's at least aware of it to the point where he can make a statement like that, and I mean, I'd much rather us all, as we discussed that night, we feel like there's going to be several other Hall of Fame moments, for some of the dudes in our group, so we can, there's going to be plenty of times for us all, for all of us to get together again. Yeah, that was definitely not the last time.
Right.
Absolutely. Watching WrestleMania this year, watching the Hall of Fame, it was a very heartfelt moment, when the Clique, obviously minus Scott, all reunited on stage, brought a tear to my eye. It was a very emotional night, and I couldn't think of a better way to put the icing on the cake for Shawn Michaels in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, no, that was it's one of those things, like when you think you win your first world championship. I always tell people, that's when, it's moments like that when it's all real. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what all the naysayers say about, our line of work. In those moments, man, it's the most real thing in the world, and to get to share it with, your present family, and then your work family, and the guys that were, the only family I had for many, many years on that road. And of course being acknowledged by, my line of work, and then having all the people, that, again, an extended family, that I grew up in front of. I mean, it is. I mean, it is very easy for me to well up and bawl like a baby when I think about that, because there's such an attachment, for me to all of those people, to everybody that's, and again, and I always try to tell people, I know it sounds cliche, to, talk about, I love the fans, and, y'all made me what I am, but, there has been a very special connection, for me to the people, and, and to that line of work, and I think that it's, I think it's because they knew the way I felt about that line of work and how much it meant to me. And so when it all culminates at a moment like that, it's very tough for it not to affect everybody in the room. And I mean, I don't know if it affected everybody, but it certainly did. It did me.
Well, absolutely. Now, I have followed you through the years. I mean, I've gone back and watched, obviously, your AWA stuff with the Midnight Rockers. But what really stood out for me, watching you growing up, was obviously your initial run with Marty as the Rockers. And I'll be honest, I like the Rockers, but I wasn't a huge Rockers fan. It wasn't until that barbershop segment when you super kicked Marty and threw him through the plate glass window that I became probably the biggest Shawn Michaels fan ever.
The kick heard around the world?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess one of the things that you're not aware of it when you're doing it. When you are that bubblegum sort of goody two shoes guy, you're not really aware of it. I mean, I think being the Rockers and all that, we felt like we were a little bit edgy, a little bit hip, a little bit cool. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Right. But then you do something like the kick, and then the window and everything else, and then you for me personally, that was my first time, feeling like a real. That's the first time I ever felt like a response like that. I mean, you can't judge or feel responses that you've never experienced before. You know what I mean? And it's almost like, I hate to use this analogy, but, whatever, like a drug or whatever, it's like you do it, it's like, holy cow, I didn't know that could be like that. You know what I mean? And you sort of get like hooked by it. It's like, holy cow, I got to try that again. And so, that was, and I guess that's the thing that I've always, that I found special, that those moments that you as a fan described, and how you felt. It's funny because I mean that's I also felt something for the first time doing that. You know what I mean? It's like you go, holy cow, man, this might be something. I'm certainly not consciously thinking about it of like I hope people like this or whatever, but it's a reaction that you've never heard before, and you go, holy cow, man, I could get used to this.
Oh, absolutely. And playing your music as we started the show earlier, that's one of those themes that as soon as that first chord hits, it's you coming through the curtain. And I think that's what's missing from the current product. Nowadays you've got this guy with some generic music or...
One of the many things missing.
Yeah, exactly. He's had, 4 or 5 different themes. But, when guys like you or Triple H, even Cena to some extent now, his music's been the same for many years. But that was the cool thing about it. My wife and I go over this all the time. I think that's missing from the current product is you can't really distinguish one guy from another because they don't have that distinct sound anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, I was, discussing it earlier in a different interview. It is. I mean, and I think that, like, for me, I don't want to be one of those bitter old timers that just continuously knocks everything. I think on one hand, it's very tough on the younger talent these days. They're not having the luxury that many of us had, which is having 4 years of experience and worked with, countless different styles before we came to the WWE. That they're getting, thrown from the frying pan into the fire. And so that's one aspect of it. They don't have a ton of experience. And the guys they're working with are the same guys they trained with, for heaven's sakes. You know what I mean? So they're all going to sort of be very similar. And then you add to that your point, which is, you don't really have anything. I mean, all the chords in your song sort of sound the same as the chords in that guy's, in that guy's song. I'm sure there's a little bit of a distinction, but not much. And then you come out, and the last guy came out in boots and tights and oil, and now you're coming out in boots and tights, and you've got a little less oil on, but other than that, you're about the same. And so I agree with you in many respects. I'm not sure if that is. I mean, I know that's not the plan for the company as a whole, and I'm truly not sure. I don't have the answer to whether that's just, people are just so happy to have the job and to be going out there that they don't really think about, what can I do to make myself different?
Right.
I think it's probably a combination of the two. And the one thing that I think the business will hurt a little bit, and I've mentioned this before. There's a lot of wonderful, good, decent young men in the business, and because of that, the business is going to suffer. You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
We were all a bunch of no good, young guys that were taught by an even bigger bunch of no gooder, old timers, and there was a rebellious, take no prisoners. Don't take any crap off anybody. If people don't like the word no, tough. I mean, and not being afraid of being unpopular and things like that, and pushing the envelope and things of that nature. And I think that helped. Obviously, it didn't help the business because a great many of us got in trouble, and and there've been some tragedies on top of that. So, on one hand, it's better for the business. I think maybe as the product, I think it suffers because there's not quite that inbred, and I don't mean inbred, I mean inbred, two separate words, attitude in a lot of these guys.
Right.
Because I think they're genuinely good guys. Which again, the business is better from a professional standpoint, but from a hey, I'm a viewer and I want to see somebody with some cojones on them and stuff like that. I think it might suffer a bit.
Now, looking at the product now, you talk about these young guys, and it just kind of happened over the span of basically about a year. We lost we lost The Undertaker, Flair went away, Jericho's gone, Triple H is, backstage doing so much now. I mean, all of my favorites are really not even in the ring anymore. And so I'm trying to adopt these new guys, and I've got a couple that I like, but who's somebody that you look out there now and say, hey, that guy might be the next, whoever, or that guy's got it?
Well, I honestly don't watch that much right now. And I do that purposely. I mean, I'll tune in every now and then, and I'll tune in for a little bit, and I'll see something that I don't care